Hi, Misty. Hi, everybody. It's Friday. This was a big thing last season. It's Friday. Welcome back. It's nice to see so many people in real life. It's been a while. So welcome into Monona Terrace to do yoga. We usually start on our back. So finding a really comfortable shape. If you prefer to sit up, by all means, you could sit. If you wanted to even do a little standing meditation, feel free to stand up, okay? So we usually start on our backs with our knees bent and our feet flat on the floor. And just give ourselves some time to settle. I was saying how quiet it was right before we got started. So we'll see if we can just find a moment to find and feel and listen just to the sound of stillness, the sound of being nice and quiet. And then noticing here what you notice. Just to bring your mind back to your body. And then just a gentle reminder that you have total agency over your body and over your practice for the next 45 minutes. So, meaning if something doesn't feel safe or comfortable in your body, please know that you can always come right back onto your backs. You can find a safe, easy posture to come back to your body, to back to your breath. Okay. So this is all about you and how you are feeling. Okay. Especially if we're in the room all together. Sometimes we might look around and try and do something that doesn't feel super comfortable. So just really honor who you are, do you, be you. And then we're going to come back. I'm going to be quiet. We're going to take 5 breaths. And then as we're breathing here all together, give yourself a moment to check in. Just kind of check in. How are you feeling physically today? You might check in energetically. You might be feeling a little sluggish. You might be feeling really strong and raring to go. Just kind of give yourself a moment to feel that, check in, acknowledge how you're feeling. If places are feeling a little tender, showing those places kindness, being really nice, right, to those tender places through our practice. This practice is a lot about how we take care of ourselves. And so with that, we're going to start a little bit of movement. Let's bring our knees right up over our hips. So if you were sitting, come onto your back and just bring your knees up over your hips, and you can hold on to the back of your legs and just start to bend and straighten the legs here, warming up your knees, getting a little more into your hamstrings. You can point and flex your ankle feet if you'd like. And then see if you can match your movement with your breathing. So we'll inhale, take the legs up. And when you feel your exhale, bend your knees and pull your feet back down. So we'll all move at a different pace based on your authentic breath. So moving from the feeling of your breath. And then the next time your legs are bent, let's bring your feet all the way down to the floor. And we're going to start a little slow today to grab the basics because we've been away from each other for a while. And some of us may have never done a yoga practice before. So let's just define what we mean by core here. So the core, as I teach it, comes from the shoulder area. So front shoulders, armpits, upper back shoulders, all the way through the rib cage down into your pelvis, into your hips. And we're talking front, side, back. And then I like to include your glutes and your hamstrings. Okay. So when we talk about yoga core, yoga plus all of these movement or this part of your body. So yoga being embodied, trying to follow your breath, having control, and taking care of yourself. So find your spine, feel your spine, and try and keep your spine in this shape as you bring your knees back up over your hips and take your legs back up to the ceiling. Now take your arms straight up towards the ceiling. Going to start with dead bug. So you're going to bend at your knees and bend at your elbows. Okay, proprioception, feeling your body in space, try and get your elbows back over your shoulders. And maybe for some of us, bring your knees just a little bit forward over your hips. It's really easy to draw the knees in too close to your chest. So let's start symmetrical. You're going to inhale, take all the limbs up. And then exhale, bend at your elbows and your knees. So a little bit like what we just did with just the legs, move from your breathing. Feel your breath and then move. I'm going to do 3 more. And then the next time all your limbs are up towards the ceiling, pause. Give yourself a couple of breaths, come back. So embodiment, come back into your body with your breathing and notice the shape of your spine. Try to keep your lower back from popping up off of the floor and then bend your elbows and bend your knees again. Now you're going to go contralateral, left leg, right arm, go up to the ceiling, and then you bend. Follow your breath. Inhale, straighten, exhale, bend. Going at your own pace from your breath. We're just going to do 1 more on each side. Once you finish this side, take all the limbs down to the floor. And then imagine you have a cummerbund or a corset on, right? So if you come from your lower ribs to your pelvic crest and then down to your pubic bone, we want this belt of muscle, front, side, back, to be really nice and toned. So when you exhale, can you feel a little bit of like a hug there? And then when you feel your inhale, keeping that sense of tone. Just 3 breaths to work a little more in just understanding this idea of having this strong transverse abdominis, this deep muscle group, which is a little bit like a cummerbund or a corset. All right, use that corset cummerbund idea to take your legs back up towards the ceiling. You're gonna make it a little more challenging now, right? So if it becomes too challenging, always back off. Remember, this is your practice. So navel can draw a little bit towards the floor, feeling that deep hug in your corset cummerbund transverse abdominis. Arms and legs up to the ceiling. You're going to take your right arm back towards the wall behind you. Try not to pop your spine and then lower your left leg a little bit. Okay, now as you stretch your left heel out of your right fingertips, try not to pop your low back up. Try not to pop your mid back up. With control, sweep those limbs back up towards the ceiling. When you're ready with your breathing, left leg or right leg, sorry, left arm go back. Try not to pop your spine. Hold strong and steady. And then bring everything back up to the ceiling. And then we're just going to go side to side like that. So you're moving and reaching opposite limbs away from each other, holding strong through that rectangular core area. Maybe one or two more on each side. When you feel that you have lost control of the exercise or you start to hold your breath, you can pause and back off and take a rest. Fabulous. And then we're going to bring all the limbs back up towards the ceiling. And then when you feel your exhale, lower them all down to the floor and give yourself 2 breaths. Coming back, that practice of embodiment. Checking in with curiosity and kindness. Notice how you feel. Notice what you notice. And then we're going to roll all the way over and build a tabletop. All right, so tabletop requires some wrist strength, okay? So if you're at home, you can always use a chair or a table for this. You can even use the wall, okay? So be kind to your wrists. If you're in the room, if you need to, you can roll your mat up a little bit and elevate the palm and bring the fingers down. Sometimes that helps with the flexion, okay? So we're just gonna start by coming to tabletop. And then you're flipping your last pose around, okay? So in that last pose, we were letting the spine feel the floor. So you have an imaginary floor, right? Or you're pushing in the floor, but imagine the floor, like there's an imaginary floor for your head and your shoulders, your ribs, and your hips, right? What would it feel like if you could push your head, shoulders, ribs, and hips up into something? So you're fighting gravity, okay? And then find those cummerbund corset muscles and make sure they're on. And you can feel your breath. We'll take 2 breaths. And then from this place of stability, you're going to walk around on your hands a little bit and warm up your wrists. So you're going to load your wrists a little differently, walking them back to your feet or your knees, walking them way out in front of you and going out really wide. If you want to do some rotation, rotating your fingers back, okay? Go pretty slow, no need to overdo it, but it can feel a little nice just to move the arms and the fingers and the wrists in different ranges of motion, okay? Great, and then you're gonna walk your hands, give yourself just a couple breaths. We're gonna come back to that table. And then we're gonna look down at our hands and we're going to claw the ground a little bit. So we're going to work just a little bit with hands because downward facing dog is a really popular yoga pose. We do it quite a bit. And then one thing that I hear oftentimes, like, it kind of hurts my wrists. So to have strong wrists, we need strong fingers. And when you claw, we want to feel the forearm muscles turn on. Okay. So these forearm muscles, we want to feel those muscles turn on when we claw. We need those muscles to help support the wrists. All right. Now, without changing the shape of your spine, let's do a little core strength exercise. You can hang out right here and just let your knees float up off the floor a little bit. Can you push down so much that your knees float up? And then lower down. Take a couple breaths. We're going to do it one more time. Okay. Now, if your knees aren't coming up, just imagine that they're pushing or they're coming up, okay? So really push down, pull your navel up a little bit so you don't sink into your low back. There you go, and let your knees lift up. And then you decide, you could come back to tabletop, or you could keep your knees coming up really slow and push your hip creases back to your downward facing dog. Okay, so you have an option. You can be in tabletop or downward facing dog. Take your feet out just a wee bit wider and pull your hip creases back. Give yourself 2 or 3 breaths. With your next exhale, you feel your exhale come back down to your tabletop. Push your hip creases back, reach your arms out and take a child's pose just for 2 breaths. With your exhale, push your arms into the floor, pull yourself back to your table, find your table. Floating table, slow up and back, downward facing dog. 3 breaths in your downward facing dog. Now, if you're at home, you can use a table or a chair. Feel your exhale. We're going to do that one more time. Slowly come back down to your knees. Push your hip creases back. Take a child's pose for 2 or 3 breaths. Reconnect into the floor. So push down and pull yourself back up to your tabletop. Push into the earth. Get your fingers and hands nice and strong. Down creates up through the knees. Lift up nice and slow with control. Pull your hip creases back. Downward facing dog. 3 breaths. When you feel your next exhale, bend your knees and start to walk your feet up to your hands. And we're going to come all the way on up to standing, nice and slow. Woo, standing mountain meditation for about 3, 4, 5 breaths. So authentic breath rhythm means, right, all of our breath is different. So my pace of breath will not match yours. See if you can feel the ground beneath you and just try and follow 2 full rounds of breath. And then when you feel your next exhale, we're going to take your feet wide. All right, so sumo squats, heels come in, toes go out. Okay, and again, this one you can go at your own pace. You're going to inhale, go down. And then inhale, let's today really push into the floor to come up. So see if you can just do it with your breath. You feel your inhale, feel your exhale. Try and feel more than thinking about it. Great. If you want a little different challenge, when you come up, lift your heels. Then maybe keep your heels up. We're going to do 3 more. Heels up or down from your breath. Next time you come up, pause, let your heels draw back to come down. Let everything that can rest, eyes open or closed, 3 breaths. Just come on back to your body, to your breath. All right, then we're going to steer your toes and your knees a little more forward, okay? Soft bend in your knee, okay? So if we give the knees a little bit of a bend, we might open a little bit through the hip. So we're just going to practice tipping at your hip, okay? So finding your rectangle. So can you keep your ears, your shoulders, and your hips stacked as you take your hip creases back, leading from your pelvis? We practice this one a lot, and then we come all the way back up. I'm going to do 4 more with your breath. So inhale over. And then with your exhale, you'll come back up. Moving from the feeling of your breath. Great, last one. And then when you fold over this time, pause. Take your heels in and your toes out a little bit and bring your hands onto your thigh bones. Remember your tabletop? Can you re-find your tabletop? So using muscle memory, okay, try and work against gravity, right? So you have your head, the back shoulders, your back ribs, and your pelvis going into that imaginary wall on your back. 2 breaths. All right, then your table's all lined up. Let your arms come down just in front towards the floor. Draw your arm bones up a little bit into your shoulders. Okay, so we're not going to round forward. We're going to bring the arm bones up into the back of the shoulders. And you're going to take those warrior 2 arms. You're going to go out nice and wide in your arms. Squeeze your shoulder blades together a little bit. And exhale, sweep them all the way on up. Do a big stretch up towards the ceiling. Inhale, come right back with stability. Exhale, come on up. Inhale, fold nice and wide. 2 more, you can go on your own. Great, next time you stand all the way up and you take a wide leg, ooh, stretch up to the ceiling, pause. And then let your arms come down and pull your arms straight back behind you, opening your shoulders. Great, sweep your arms up. And then sweep your arms back. 1 more like that. Great, and then just let your arms hang down and step your feet together. Give yourself 3 breaths to come back into your breath, into your body. And then when you feel your next exhale, 1 more time, take a big wide stride. Your left leg's gonna roll in a little bit and your right leg's gonna roll out. So we're gonna go just a little bit slower so we get the hang of this one. We understand this one in our bodies. We want the 2 heels to be a little more in alignment. So if you look down, your heel to heel, okay? And then your hips and your navel are at a diagonal, okay? And you're gonna lift your pelvic bowl up. So these front hip points are gonna lift up as you take your right knee forward and bend and straighten just like that. All right, so you're warming in. Next time your right knee is bent, you're gonna pause. Okay, look, try and get your right knee to be a little more over your middle toe, which will just help the glutes a little bit. Okay, push your left thigh bone back and stretch that groin. Good, take your arms all the way up and out into a T. And give yourself a few moments to settle into your shape. Come back to your corset, cummerbund, transverse abdominis area and see if you can feel a little more work in your core. When you feel your next exhale, you're going to sweep your arms up to the ceiling. So we'll all move at a different pace. When you exhale, take your arms up. And then you're going to tip at your hip and bring your right elbow to your right thigh bone. Give yourself a couple moments to shift around so it feels comfortable, it feels okay. 2 or 3 breaths. You're going to exhale, come back up to that warrior 2 with your arms outstretched. And then straighten your right leg and straighten your arms. Try and keep your arms up, a little bit of shoulder work. Take your right leg in and your left leg out. Just going over to the other side. You're about heel to heel. Great, and then your arms can come down onto your hips. You're gonna bend and straighten that left knee 2 times. The third time, you're going to hold that knee bent. Find your corset cummerbund. Okay, notice how your pelvis and belly button are at a diagonal from your leg. Great, sweep your arms up. And then open the arms into that T shape. Take a couple of breaths. See if you can soften the shoulders out of the ears. Corset cummerbund nice and strong. Great, take your arms back up to the ceiling. When you're ready, tip at the hip, left elbow to the left knee. 3 breaths. Notice how it feels. Adjust as you need to. Keep breathing. Exhale back to your warrior 2. Straighten the left leg, take the arms up. One more time, take the left leg in, take the right leg out, and bring your hands to your hips. Just pause. So let's imagine that we were on 2 weighted scales. You had a scale under your right leg and you had a scale under your left leg, okay? So you wanna try and keep the weight sorta, kinda, pretty even as you bend your right knee. Okay, so don't lose the weight of the left leg. And the same as when you straighten. Can you keep the weight a little more even right side, left side? You might even add your midline, right? Like right through. If you're had a third leg and it went straight down the middle. Great. Now when your right knee's bent, pause. Take your arms out into that warrior 2 again. Try to keep the weight pretty equal. Don't lose the left leg as you tip to the right. So you might put your right elbow on your leg, or you might bring your right arm inside of your leg. And that's going to be a little more challenging. Then you're going to hold this for about 5 breaths, a little bit longer. So you can feel all the feels. Check in. Keep breathing. Use your corset cummerbund and exhale to come on up. Straighten the right leg, take the arms up and come forward. Just back to center. So right side, left side are pretty even, right? So as you go right leg in, left leg out, again, try and feel, imagine there's 2 scales as you go to that warrior 2. Right? It's really easy to put a lot more weight out into the left side like this. Woo! Keep that right back leg in your awareness. Right? You're gonna see and feel the back side. And then you're gonna tip. Nice and slow. Gonna hold a little bit longer. Find your corset cummerbund. Use your corset cummerbund to come all the way on up. Straighten the left leg, come back to center. Great, bring your hands down onto your pelvis and step your feet together. All right, I'm gonna go sideways. We're just gonna take 3 breaths for a moment. So what do we mean when we say use your corset cummerbund? So right here, as you're standing, feeling a little more what we might call engaged breathing. So when we exhale, the ribs draw in. When we inhale, right, the ribs draw out nice and wide, okay? So can we keep that feeling as we draw the navel gently back towards the spine, okay? Not drawing it back so much that it feels like a cage, like we're locked and we can't breathe, and feel the breath down here. So you'll feel the breath, but there won't be like a big belly breath. Like you're not gonna pump your belly, okay? So let's just try and feel that a little more when we're standing, because these muscles are more engaged in standing than lying on our backs. And it can just be super helpful just to bring your mind there. Again, that whole point of yoga, right? Engage, being in our body, embodiment. You're going to drop the weight into your heels. You're going to draw your navel back into your spine and find a chair pose. So your chair pose could be, right, pretty high, like a high chair, like a stool, or you might be going lower, lower, lower. Okay. Now, even more challenging is going to be to take the arms forward and up. Now, when you take your arms up, be careful you don't compress the low back too much and push those ribs forward. You have to keep some awareness. I say because it's really hard for me. Navel to spine. This is like the hardest pose for me. Don't move your legs, just hinge at your hips and bend over. Bring your hands up onto your thigh bones. Engaged breathing, lower transverse abdominis cummerbund corset. Remember, it wraps all the way to your back. Build your tabletop. Do you remember that feeling of being on your hands and knees? Now shift the weight a little more into the balls of your feet. Keeping your corset cummerbund in your awareness. Take your arms out really wide like T's again. Push the weight into your heels and come back up to your chair. Great, back to standing, back to chair, you pick. Maybe you want a chair pose, maybe you're like, nah, I'm gonna go back to the stand. Take your arms out wide, forward fold, keep your knees bent. This time you're gonna bring your hands down towards your shins, keep your knees bent. Go slow and pull your sit bones straight up and give your hamstrings some stretch. Just go to that point where you're like, okay, I feel my low back, I feel my hamstrings. That's probably enough. No need to overdo it. Give yourself a breath or two. Now, just lift your collarbones. So lift your collarbones and look out in front of you. 2 breaths. Bend your knees, drop your hands, step back, downward facing dog. Bend your knees as much as you need. Push your hip creases back. If you need to come to tabletop first to get the alignment, to get your hands and wrists nice and strong, then go to table first. You do your version of downward facing dog. 3 breaths. Great, and then we're gonna exhale, lower down to your knees. We're gonna take a fork in the road. You can do tabletop, you could do floating table, or you could step your feet back into a straight arm plank, okay? If you're going to plank for that challenge, take your shoulders over your wrists, okay? You really wanna work on trying to get your shoulders over your wrists, strong fingers and forearms, and you're maybe even coming forward a little more on your toes. This will definitely help you define your cummerbund corset transverse area and your upper back. It's better to have a pike than a sag. Everyone finds just the right challenge. Be nice to yourselves. We're going to take about 10 more seconds. Yeah, and as I look around the room here, it's really nice to see everyone in a different shape. Right? Everyone's doing their own thing. And then we're going to exhale, lower down, and push back to a place that you can rest for about 5 breaths. So you could take a child's pose. If that works on your hips, you can do a down dog. You could come to sitting. You could come on your back. Great, and then we're gonna come all the way out onto our bellies, okay? So I have a mic on, so I can't bring my head clear down to the floor, but you sure can. So as long as it doesn't cause too much tension or issue in your wrists, try and bring your hands down by your lower ribs. If that is not your jam for your wrists, then bring your arms out in front of you and just cross your forearms and let your head come down onto your forearm. Okay. So a version of prone mountain. We're all going to tuck our chins, let our noses just hover. And then the front body gets to ground down into the earth, and we get to open up and breathe through the back. So we're going to take just a moment here to take maybe 3, 4, 5 breaths. And we don't really get to see our back body much, so learning and feeling out our back body through your breathing. And as you're breathing here, come back to that feeling of engaged breath. So as you take an exhale, feeling that tone in the lower deep abdominals, can you thread that feeling of tone into your inhale? You might even draw your navel up gently. And then we're going to reach your legs really long. We're going to pull your toes back. So if I could walk around and grab everybody's pinky toe, I'd pull it out of your shoulders, out of your ears. Okay. So we're going to go for length. And then with an inhale, keep your eyes down for a little bit and just lift your collarbones up and then lower your collarbones. I'm going to do 2 more baby cobras like that. So we're just going to inhale, lift, trying not to move quite so much from your neck, a little more right up in between your shoulder blades. And then we're going to lower down. All right. You decide if that was a good challenge, keep it. If you want more of a challenge, float your hands off of the floor. Okay. So you're going to come back up into a baby cobra, but you're going to lift your arms. Get a little more, for some of us, a lot more into the back shoulder blades and lower down. So 2 more, going for length, keeping that feeling like your head is really long out of your toes. Length first, lift height second. And then we're going to come down, put your hands maybe under your forehead and just give yourself 3 breaths. All right, let's turn it into just a little bit more of a strength combo with your back bend here. We're going to bring your arms out like goalposts. Okay, now remember, you do you. Okay, I'm going to demo the full pose, but you do you. Okay, so your arms are out like goalposts. And we want to start by getting the spine long, and then you're going to pull your arms back. So you're going to claw the earth and pull your arms back like you could propel yourself forward. And then you're going to start to lift your chest. And if that's coming along, then you could lift your elbows and maybe, right, start to push down into the floor and come up higher, 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 and lift your chin. And then you're going to roll back down. We keep things really engaged. Okay, so you keep your lower abdominals really engaged, you keep your upper back, and we go slow enough that we can feel the spine trickle, move up vertebra by vertebra. So when there's a part that doesn't feel so good, we can stop. We can pause and assess. Can move shoulders down out of your ears and lowering down, okay? So I'm going to let you go ahead and do maybe 1 or 2 more. Pay really close attention to your lower backs, okay? We don't need to overhinge. Just make sure it's feeling okay in your low back. Trying to get a little more mobility in your mid upper back between your shoulder blades. And then we'll come all the way down after this one. You could put your hands under your forehead and just give yourself a few breaths. And then we're going to plant your hands. You're going to pick where you want to go next. It's like your own adventure book. You could stay right here. You could push yourself up to tabletop. You could push yourself up to straight arm plank. You could go to downward facing dog. Okay. So pick a spot, pick a shape. And then when you get in the shape, come back for 3 breaths. Great. And then we're going to lower our knees and find a really easy seat, really easy place to put our bums on the ground. So you could do crisscross applesauce or bring your knees out in front. All right, we're just going to do one really gentle twist to each side, okay? So you're going to cross your arms. Try to keep your belly buttons facing forward. So again, you're going to use your cumberbund muscles to provide stability in your low back. And you're just going to take your rib cage around to the right and give yourself 3 breaths. After your 3 breaths, you're going to go all the way around to the left. And then one more time over to the right for 2 breaths. And then to the left for 2 breaths. And then back to center. Great. Bring your arms down and just one time sweep your arms up. Just give yourself a nice big stretch up towards the ceiling. And see if you can feel your back ribs lift up a little bit. Sweet. And then let your arms come down. All right. We always take the last couple of minutes for self-care. So you have about 2-3 minutes here to check in. You can take Shavasana where you lie all the way onto your back and rest. You might have a favorite stretch we didn't do. You could take time to do your favorite stretch. If you want to do something more vigorous, like some push-ups, you could roll over and do push-ups, right? So you do you. Just be respectful, as you always are, of everyone around you. If you're moving, just go nice and slow and quiet. And we'll take the next maybe 1.5, 2 minutes in silence. And maybe you're moving, maybe you're in stillness. Keep moving if you're moving. It's an opportunity to, again, just come on back to your body and your breath. And then as we're all here in different shapes, in different places, I'm just going to take a few of our last moments here as gratitude practice. So you can definitely do this on your back. You can do this sitting. You can do this walking. Finding, feeling, noticing 2 or 3 things you're extremely grateful for and why. Just give yourself a moment to take a breath for each one. And come all the way back to your breath. If you're on your back, you can draw your knees into your chest. Try not to think about it too much and just roll over and come on up to sitting. Sweet. And when you get on up one more time, we'll just take our arms up and do a nice stretch. You might do a little side bend. Wow. Thanks everyone so much for showing up for our first Friday back. It's really good to be back and have so many here. Thank you so much. Have a fabulous weekend. See you Tuesday. Thanks everybody.